We welcome in UConn royalty.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to say how thankful we are for all of you and appreciate all of the support we get. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the UConn men's and women's basketball program, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. To show that gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Well, today's a true honor. Our next guest is an icon in women's basketball, a former point guard who led the Huskies to their first ever national championship in 1995 with an undefeated season. She collected just about every award you can think of: All-American honors, Big East Player of the Year, AP Player of the Year, the Wade Trophy, and more. After an 8-year pro career, including 2 WNBA titles with the Houston Comets, she built a stellar coaching career at Hartford and at GW. Now she's the president of the Connecticut Sun and continues to make her mark internationally with USA Basketball. This UConn alum needs no introduction. We welcome in Jennifer Rizzotti. All right, so without further ado, let's bring in Jen Rizzotti. Jen, welcome to the program. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Listen, we gave you a glowing intro. I know you didn't get to hear it yet, but you will when we put this out next week. You've done so much for the sport. This is a UConn-specific show, so I got to take you back to, I just mentioned this off stage. I was 14 years old when you guys won the first national championship. All of Connecticut was enamored with you guys in 1995 and the country itself. Just take me back to that time, if you don't mind. I'm sure you've answered this question a million times, but even before you guys won a national championship, what sold you to come to UConn?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think a couple different factors. Obviously, as people know, Gino's a great leader, and he was able to articulate a vision that really, impacted me. And, I think being from Connecticut, I wanted to be close enough where my family could see me play, and I wanted to be part of a winning program that had a chance to be great. And I know you're always kind of taking a chance, and it's a leap of faith to some extent, but when I visited campus and I met the staff and the players and saw the facilities that they had just built in Gamble, you could just sense that it was a program on the rise, and it was something that I wanted to be a part of.
Did you guys ever feel the kind of immense rise of that women's basketball trend from that 95 team and obviously to where it is today? But could you kind of sense that things were changing in a great direction with your team back in 95?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we could have imagined what the UConn dynasty has become at the time, but I honestly was just doing an interview about this yesterday, where when I was a freshman, people could just kind of waltz into Gamble and walk down to the lower bowl and grab a seat and watch the game. And, there's probably a couple thousand people per game in 92, 93. And then all of a sudden, by the end of 95, you couldn't get a ticket,
Right.
and the games were on CPTV. So there was like increased awareness about the UConn women's team. And, we were undefeated, and, that took a lot of time to build. Even the time before I got there, with the Final Four team in 1990, it didn't happen overnight, but it felt like it did to some extent. And so I think we knew we were part of something that was really special. We felt it, we cherished it and enjoyed it every day. And we didn't allow the moment to get too big for us. And then, you go back 5 years later, 10 years later, and now, decades later, and it's just amazing what, our small team was able to accomplish and maybe be a little bit at the beginning of what UConn has become.
It's pretty incredible because I mentioned this on another show I did. I just went back to stores for the first time in 30 years because when I grew up in Meriden, Connecticut, my parents, when we would go to games, it was typically XL Center. So what was the Civic Center back then, right?
Yeah.
And so Stores always felt like this kind of like mecca of like, if you got to go to a game at Gamble, it was like, whoa, that's such a big deal.
Yeah.
So when I stepped into Gamble for the first time last Friday for the men's game to cover it, I was blown away. Like, think about the difference between when you guys got into Gamble and then now. What, like, just share those differences.
Yeah, you know, it's a lot has changed in interior, right? I think even where the offices are and the locker room and the weight room, and I kind of get lost down there when it used to be something that was so familiar to me. And I think that they've done a good job of like maximizing every bit of space that they have, because they have to, right? You know, obviously the addition of the practice facility has been amazing and well deserved for both the men's and women's programs. And that's not something we had. We practiced in Gamble every day. But to just go into Gamble and see the, you know, the branding and the players up in the rafters and see what they've been able to do with the space that they have to improve the facilities. You know, it's just amazing. I think they even maximize how many people fit in there. I think it used to be 2,000 less and they added seats. So, but it has a special feel to it, you know, like, I can remember I never played in the Civic Center when I was at UConn. That started after I left. And so I can remember going to games after I graduated in Hartford, or even some of the men's games in Hartford when I was at UConn. It never quite felt the same, right? The intimacy of Gamble and, you know, the curved ceiling and, you know, just the energy and the feel in that building is so unique. And when they play the fight song, it just like makes all of us alum want to run back out on the court and you know, just hoop it up, you know. So it's just really been fun to watch the growth of the program. And you know, I'm so impressed with how not just they've sustained the level of success in terms of wins and championships, but also just in how they operate and who they recruit and the kind of people they bring into the program. It makes, I think, all of us alums really proud that they've maintained their integrity in the way that they operate for 4 decades.
Well said. When we get back from the break, we're going to ask Jen here about her coaching days and some relationship with former players and coaches coming up after this. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating, well, it's easy because you have chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day. We used Factor when our daughter was born 4 months ago, and I couldn't tell you how easy it is for me to just pop in a nutritious meal in the Protein Plus for me. And I think my wife did the Calorie Smart. Don't tell me why. She was coming off of giving a baby. She could have gotten whatever she wanted, but it kept us fueled throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege 50 off and use code Locked On College 50 off, all one word, to get 50% for your first box plus free shipping. That's code Locked On College 50 off at factormeals.com/Locked On College 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, we're back with Jen Rizzotti here on Locked On UConn. My first question, as a coach.
Yeah,
I'm a married man. I have 3 great kids. Talk to me about what it was like coaching at Hartford with your husband Bill as one of your assistants.
It was mostly good, I will say. You know, we both had such a passion for coaching and impacting lives, and you know, we just kind of found ourselves talking about our coaching experiences during my first year when he wasn't coaching. And, you know, when the opportunity came up to hire him on the staff, it just felt really natural. We were, you know, strategizing and preparing and just bought in at such a high level. And we created something really special there. And, you know, we had both of our kids when we were coaching at Hartford, and they grew up in that family. And, you know, we keep in touch with quite a few of those alums from those programs. And it just made it really special. It made it a family feel when we talked about, recruiting kids to our family. It was real and you could feel it. It was palpable. So we definitely had our moments where we argued about how to do things, but we made a great team. And I know a lot of people joke about how they could never work with their spouse, but for us, it just worked. And it kind of overwhelmed and became all of our life together and all of our kids' life. But it was what we wanted. And, we wouldn't go back and trade that for anything.
No, it's great. And I joke around because I was a professional tennis player. And when I got out of playing, I got into coaching. And when I would be at clubs or whatever, people would say, well, should I play mixed doubles with my wife or my husband? And I would always ask the question, how like, do you want to stay married?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so that's why it's always interesting when there's a dynamic like that obviously worked really well for you guys. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Really special. All right, let's talk about some relationships with former players.
Mhm.
I know you're close with Jamelle Elliott. Talk to me about the relationship when you were playing, and then now that you guys are essentially colleagues. We'll talk a little bit about the Connecticut Sun here in a second, but I'm just curious about that relationship in particular.
Yeah, I think Jamelle and I's relationship has ran the entire spectrum. We started off being introduced to each other on like orientation weekend when we were just about to both start our freshman year. And we hit it off pretty easily. I think what weren't aware of at the time was how competitive we both were at an extremely high level. I'm not sure I've ever had a teammate that matched my competitiveness and fire as much as Jamelle Elliott. So I will say that we were not great roommates once the season started. And we were like playing pickup with each other every day and coming back to the room, mad at each other every day. We made it about 2 years as roommates. And then we moved on. She got a single. I started rooming with somebody else. And we essentially had the best relationship our junior and senior year because we had a single goal in mind, and that was to win and to use that competitiveness and that fieriness for the betterment of the team. So not having to live together was the best move we made. So Jamelle ended up being somebody that was in my wedding party, and we've stayed in touch ever since as coaching colleagues and friends and supporters of each other's success. And I will always say that she's the best teammate I've ever had. I wouldn't classify her as the best friend I have of all my teammates, but she is the best teammate because we were so in sync with our high expectations for our teammates. What we were both prepared to do to be excellent. We matched each other's intensity and work ethic. And so I think that puts her in that category for me.
Love it. Do you ever get the itch to go back into coaching?
I do not. I did it for 2 decades. I will say that I am coaching my sons, and Rebecca Lobo and I are both coaching our sons together in AAU boys basketball. So I get my itch scratched
cool.
there. We have a lot of fun together. It's been 3 years now where we've been doing this, and just really enjoy getting to spend time with Rebecca and her family, and getting to really spend time with our boys together and, influence a group of 15, 16, 17-year-old now boys in a way and make them respect and appreciate women's basketball in a way they probably wouldn't have otherwise. So it's been a blast, and we got a great group of kids and families. And so I get when I want to coach, I know I can do that, but I've really enjoyed my role here with the Connecticut Sun and moving away from coaching and that stress level and finding a new way to be competitive in my professional life here.
For sure. And you mentioned the Connecticut Sun. First off, I think it's amazing that you're, in Connecticut still doing what you love in a new capacity. What's that experience been like for you?
It's been great. I didn't really know I needed this pivot in my career until I did it. I loved coaching. I loved the impact I could have on these young women. But I found that I could do the same thing here as a team president, and I could get back to a league where I started, and I could now influence the players in certain ways in terms of amplifying like their mission and their voices, but also empower the young women in my office to recognize like careers that they can have in sports outside of being a player. And so it's been really special to be back in Connecticut after my 5 years at GW and be embraced by this, community and this state and these fans. and be a part of the WNBA in such a pivotal moment for women's basketball and the growth of our sport and its popularity and its ability to, the awareness of it and the ability to watch it. And so I love that I'm now able to impact the sport in a different way and help grow it from this, not necessarily the sideline, but from behind the scenes.
For sure. And my next question is really kind of like a two-part question because and I will shout out my aunt. Pam Zanetto, she is probably one of your biggest fans. She still lives in Connecticut, been following the team. I think I won't age her, but she's she's been watching for quite a bit and probably one of the best athletes you've never heard of because she's an incredible golfer. So what I will ask, she asked this question: what are the biggest differences you see between college basketball, and then you can throw the WNBA in the mix, from like when you were playing in the 90s to now?
I think like overall talent level has gone up, like the athleticism, the size. I mean, I think about the fact that I had so much success as a 5'5" point guard, and now I feel like you have to be like 5'10" to be a point guard in the WNBA or a successful point guard in college. So I'm always my favorites are always like the little ones, like Georgia Amore from Kentucky, because I'm like, oh, there's a little point guard. But it's challenging. Like the players have gotten bigger and better and smarter and more talented. There's more, technology around, physical, mental, emotional enhancements of your game. Like there's more film that can be watched. There's a higher level of IQ and learning that we just didn't have, right? I always marvel about the fact that they have these guns that you can shoot and it'll spit the ball back out at you. I used to like use a pitch back, like one of those baseball things, and hope that I made it so the ball would bounce back my direction. And now they have a shooting gun that spits it right to your shooting pocket. And so I always joke about how much the game has grown and how we've been able to embrace that. And but I also just think the access, right? Like when I watched college in high school, it was like 2 weekends of the year that college basketball was on TV. Now you turn on the TV and you can find it everywhere. And if you turn on ESPN Plus, it's like every single league. So if you want to watch a game, you have access to watch that game, no matter what conference, what level, what part of the country that team is playing in. We never had that kind of access. And so I think it's wonderful that families and fans and parents and friends can watch their loved ones play. We can grow new fans to our game because of the access that's being provided, not just at a national level, but even on a streaming level.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I've been talking about this for a little bit with, we've had guests on for Locked On UConn, but this about streaming and using it to the advantage of women's sports. So do you feel like in the future, especially with the new Unrivaled League and then obviously with the WNBA, where we're going to sell media rights to an exclusive provider, whether it be something like Netflix that feels like everybody has that. So that it's synonymous with women's basketball, whether it be WNBA or college.
I think there could be a time where that comes. I think that you're seeing it in other sports right now. The men's soccer league, I think, went to Amazon Prime exclusively. You're seeing more viewership TV, right? Like Monday Night Football. And then for the WNBA, it's Friday night on ION. And so I think women's basketball is trying to create this cadence that if you turn on, Friday night, you're going to see a WNBA game. You turn on right now, Sunday afternoon on ESPN, you're going to see the best women's basketball matchups. So, but yeah, I think as we start to kind of cut the cord, there needs to be the ability to see some of these, special matchups without needing to have cable, right? And so I think that's the direction that we're going in. I don't know, but I just know that the access, the behind the scenes, the storytelling around content, the brand building, it's something we never had to worry about. We didn't have to worry about what we said in the locker room or what we said in a press conference or what we did out on a Friday night. Right now, everything is like part of the unfortunately for these kids, like everything is part of public viewership. And so, but I think the players have used that to their advantage, and it's made some of these really popular college players turn into really popular professional players because they're bringing their brand and they're bringing their fans to the WNBA. So I think that we'll eventually find a solution where you'll see WNBA or women's basketball games on one platform, but I think it's great right now that so many different, channels and streaming platforms want to be airing women's basketball right now. And even if sometimes it might be a challenge to find out where those games are, that's what Google's for, right? That's
Right.
what typing in, where do I watch the UConn Huskies tonight against Tennessee? That's where that comes into play. And I think everything is made easier for you to find these games now.
For sure. Well, listen, Jen, I really appreciate you jumping on for a
Yeah.
little bit here. I know you got to get out of here. So we'd love to have you back again. And,
All right.
appreciate your contributions to the Husky Nation and wish the Connecticut Sun all the best.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me on. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off and you want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player late to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your one shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the NFL. I just want to say how grateful we are for Jen Rizzotti to come on the show. She didn't need to do that. She was a fantastic guest. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Jen Rizzotti. She had limited time, or else I could have done an entire hour with her about the 95 team, her time at UConn, relationship with Gino, what's Rebecca Lobo like off the court, like all of that stuff, like all the things that probably Husky Nation is wondering. And hopefully when she has more time in the future, or if I can go up and interview her in person, that would be a really cool experience. But really appreciate Jen coming through for us. Shout out to all of the people that contribute to the show, but most notably Colleen Morrissey. She is the one who reached out to Jen's people on our behalf. So really appreciate her for the persistence in trying to get us some good guests on the show. She's doing some work for us behind the scenes. So wanted to give her a shout out there. And honestly, guys, I don't think there's much more to say. When this comes out, we'll know the results of South Carolina UConn. So I really can't say one way or the other. Hopefully we win. And if we didn't, it's back to the drawing board and getting ready for the NCAA tournament. So this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, and to remember it's not about doing it. It's not about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that can't be done any better. That's our goal every day. Go Huskies.